I'm going to ask for you to explain what type of help you need and what type of help you're getting from your vendors with regard to managing map pricing and making sure the playing ground is as even as possible out there. So Peter, I'm going to start with you.
It's an interesting question. It doesn't hit all of our vendors as an important issue, just being gift and housewares. It certainly seems to be more of a factor with our housewares vendors than with our gift vendors. And certainly the internet is the place where it comes into the fore. I've seen now, we were invited by Amazon to sell there in 2006. I was very skeptical, so I said, I'm going to put one pillow on there with the 9 cats on it. And if that sells, I'll believe I can actually sell on Amazon. 4 days later, it sold. And vendors were not really aware this was about to happen and about to hit them. And so little me, the afternoon, to household name just like Williams-Sonoma, would come to the vendors and say, pricing's all over the place with your product. And did you know that? Because I'd really like to sell it for your suggested retail. And they'd either not really know that there was a problem or not understand the dimensions of the problem. Again, this was 2006, 2007. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. And instead of being the one coming and saying that there's an issue, now I'm getting the influx of the MAP policies. And I don't hold a MAP policy against anyone. In fact, I encourage them. My problem is consistency. My problem is communication. And certainly reps can help us with that if they're even made aware of what's going to happen with MAP policy. But again, not naming any names. I don't need to name any names. It's very inconsistent across the industry. Its enforcement of it appears to me to be inconsistent across the industry. Implementation appears to be inconsistent across the industry. MAP pricing with inconsistencies, and I've seen inconsistencies everything from there are a few players who are allowed to sell on the internet and nobody else is, to, well, MAP's a little different for this person, a little different for that person, a little different for the other person. It's a very gray area. Certainly not all vendors. Some vendors have very clear MAP policies, they enforce them, and it's very clear to understand them. And I
appreciate that, Peter, because I think what I'd like to do as we go through this question on the table is that maybe you can explain how you've been able to reconcile some of that inconsistency. We know that's a problem, and we know it's a challenge that's very hard to overcome because there's just so many touch points now.
Go ahead, Paul. I actually look for vendors that have strong MAP policies. I like it that way because they enforce their brands, and that way it helps me to differentiate because I'm really close to a bunch of grocery stores. I'm a mile away from Bed Bath & Beyond. It's not like, I know I can't compete with their selection, their minimum pricing, their 20% coupons and all that stuff. There's a bunch of companies that will sell on Amazon and they'll undercut our MAP by $5. They're going to buy from that one every single time. And I've asked some of them about it, and they're like, we don't know how, we can't enforce it because Amazon won't tell them who that customer is. They won't tell them how they're getting that product. Right. So it's kind of an under the table thing. I almost wish, it was the MAP police and they go buy one of them and then find out where their address is and lock them down. That'd be nice. Yeah. But yeah, I think I came from the motorcycle industry before I did this, and I worked for a big company, and they had very, very strict, pricing things. And I find it an advantage to find companies that do that so that, it does give you the ability to compete.
Does anybody have a style? Actually, can you?
Yes.
Yeah, because you're primarily, you're cataloging
Absolutely.
online.
Yeah,
right?
and so this is a huge problem for our company. And when you're competing with your vendors, that's wrong. It's just wrong. And they have the ability to sell things at a lower price because they're going direct.
I'm expected to have integrity in my business to sell to my customer, and I expect the same out of my vendors. And I realize there's corporations and people have to meet their sales, but you know what? I don't have a never-ending supply of money.
Right.
And so I have what I can spend, and I'm going to find those companies with integrity and deal with them. And if they don't want to do or follow a MAP price, well, then I'm going to go spend my money somewhere else.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
not very hard just
Yeah.
to go spend your money somewhere else. And maybe your customer will go to the majors and find that one deal. But it still goes back to supporting your community, and we're in for the long haul.
And then we'll see if we can deal with the customer, and explain to them the importance of supporting a locally owned business and keeping them in the community, paying taxes and charity and so forth and so on.
Sarah, what's your experience
Well,
on
I
this issue?
definitely agree with Peter with the consistency, and I know that we can't police everybody, but nicer to be able to say, yes, we can offer it to you at this price.
Right.
For us in Alaska, being a little bit different than everyone else and incurring all of the shipping costs, for us to actually choose to be at MAP is a pretty big decision, and because we don't get the same price as everyone else. We start, accruing that freight right away, and when we choose to be at MAP, we do appreciate when everyone is sticking to that MAP, because we are at the same price, or we will price match someone who is fair.
Right.
So when someone is extra, gouging everyone else, it makes it a lot harder for us.
That for you, are you allowed to come back with it and be like, this isn't exactly what I wanted, can you show me something else? Macy's like, exchange it and then give you your money back or whatever. I don't mean to out the big boxes or anything, but with the whole MAP policy, I think that I don't do a whole lot of business online, so with some things I kind of do undercut it a little bit, and that's where they're like, oh, you have this cheaper than so and so, this is great, and then that's where we get our repeat customers and the experience, obviously.
Right.
That as well. So,
But it's kind of like you have to carry that particular line if you're a kitchen store because people expect it. And we do carry it. I'm cautious with which items we actually bring in.
Yeah, and you have to direct the business to the goods that are to your advantage in that situation, even though you have to carry a certain brand or a certain product.
Yeah, with kitchen and like being gourmet, you do have to have some products to have, be included
They're kind of
as
the
a
cost
kitchen
of entry
store.
in the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you do bite your tongue with some things, but,
Has anybody dropped vendors over this?
Well, I think in the end, still, what's most important is how am I going to please my customer.
Yeah.
So if the customer really likes that product, even if I'm having a tough time with the vendor, I want to have that available.
Because you need that customer to come back the next time.
Exactly.
Right?
However, I may very well go out and see if there are other sources that are as good, and try to direct that customer to considering some of those other vendors. So I will not be batting for that vendor, but I will still keep the relationship so I can service my customer. If the vendor's not going to have my back, I'm not going to have the vendor's back.
Anyone else on the issue of MAP before we move on?
I have dropped someone, but like Peter, there's enough in the market that your salespeople, we can direct them to another product that is very close to what their product is.